Hello ladies and gentlemen. As you watch gameplay from Halo 5, I want to talk about a more general topic, video games in today's market. We are transitioning from the month of September to October here in the year of 2016, so we are facing new up-and-coming games. As we are about to buy a new game, we are probably faced with several different editions. For instance, you will have your base game, which is typically $59.99. However, there may be certain editions, such as a limited or deluxe edition, and then there's the grand prize, the ultimate edition, or in Halo's sake, legendary, or as Battlefield names it, premium. With a deluxe or a limited edition, you'll get certain content that you wouldn't get in the base game, and it could be a pretty good deal. Sometimes. But let's just say a deluxe or limited edition may go for anywhere between $70 to $80. That's just a rough estimate, and I'll explain this coming up here in a little bit. Then you take an ultimate edition, the best edition that you can get, and it may go up to $100 or even more. Maybe a lot more. I will agree that some companies do milk out as much money as they can from their consumers, whether it's the developers or publishers. I'm not going to point fingers, but it's going to be one of those two. But if the consumers like the game and they're willing to pay for extra stuff, well, have at it, I suppose. Now, going back onto all these different editions, a lot, not all, but a lot of people will curse up and down when a game comes out and they have several different editions, and they will say that the content that is found in these other editions should have already been in the base game. Well, look, you're absolutely right. It definitely should have been. For me to explain this, we will have to do a little bit of some time travel back to, let's not go too far. Since the video shows Halo 5, let's keep some formality to this and look at November 2001. This is when the original Xbox was released, November 15th, 2001 to be exact. An original base Xbox game cost $49.99. Round that to about $53 and some odd cents after taxes. And then a few years went by. And on November 22nd of 2005, the Xbox 360 was released. A little under a year later, on November 11th of 2006, the PS3 was released. But I want to go back to 2005. On November 22nd, when the 360 came out, that's when games jumped up to $59.99. So you would round that to about $63. $59.99, that's what we still pay. Wouldn't you think that after a decade and almost a year later, we would see a base game increase in price? Of course, today's market and the economy is different than what it was in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Of course, the infamous year of 2008 really made the economy drop. But one thing has stayed constant. Are these games at $59.99 for the base game? See, when a video game is made and it ships, keyword ships, S-H-I-P-S. When it ships millions and millions of copies and therefore has potential to sell millions and millions of copies, the development process isn't going to be cheap. It's still going to maintain a budget with the software that they use for the game, but still that software is typically not going to be cheap if the developers want to bring in something new and fresh for the community. Games nowadays with great graphic fidelity and awesome sophisticated software, as well as these cutscene cinematics. I'm not just talking about Halo 5 cinematics, I'm talking about games across the board from Xbox to PS4 to the PC. These games look incredible, and this is all created by the software that was tailored to the developer's budget. If you let developers work without a budget and they could just do whatever they want in a game, that first of all, that game is never going to be able to work on consoles due to the limitations, and it's probably never going to be released because the developer's job, they feel, is never done. Now, we all know those kind of people. We've run into them before. The ones that say, oh, games back in the good old days, those were much better and came with more content. Well, just watch out for that nostalgia, because it will get you. However, those nostalgia-driven people should remember that Nintendo 64 games, when they were first sold, they were not cheap by any means. Some may have sold for maybe around $40, but big games such as Turok, you know, the one where you run around shooting dinosaurs and there's blood everywhere, or GoldenEye, when those games first came out, they were up to $50 to even $70. And $50 or $70 is different back in the 90s than what it is now. In fact, a gentleman named Howard Lincoln, one who looked over Nintendo in America, not a big deal or nothing, well, he talked about how games may rise in price even more when the Nintendo was in its prime years. Thank goodness Sony came along, because what Sony did was create a competition. What they did was they sold their games for a cheaper amount, making Nintendo drop their price to stay competitive. Which is why I can't wrap my head around when some people say that either Microsoft or Sony should stop making video game consoles because they've been beaten by their competitor. No, you need the competition there to drive the technology, to drive the software, because one console is going to want to one-up the other one, and so they're going to come out with new things and create new technology that we have never seen before. If you let one company make a video game console and there's no competitors at all, they're going to be raising the price extremely high to where you're probably going to be paying for a base game in the triple digits. And why would a company do this? Because if they're the only ones making games, they can make it whatever price they want. But if they don't see any kind of games being sold in the triple digits, then yeah, they would probably lower the price, but you'd probably be paying a lot more than what we pay now, still $59.99. To wrap up this subject and transition into Halo 5, as a summary, video games nowadays with the great graphics and the great software, it costs a lot to make. Base games sold at $59.99 in today's market makes it to where video games are the cheapest they've ever been. Yet the developers and the publishers have to make a profit. So sometimes you would see content that you would think that should be in the base game, but they sell it in the deluxe or the ultimate edition because they need to get that extra $79.99 or the $100 purchases from these consumers. And some people are willing to pay that if they like the game enough. Don't get me wrong, I am human too. I don't want to be paying any more than I have to. If I could pay $59.99 from here on out, that's perfect. If I can pay a lot less, hey, that would be awesome. But I know it's not necessarily going to happen. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of a food for thought for why certain games have different editions like this that cost the amount that they do. Does this mean that we should promote lackluster content in the base games? No, not at all. We should get what we deserve for $60. Now there's a reason why I brought up Turok back on the N64. That was a big game back in the day. But do you see any big Turok games lately? The Turok games that came out after the Nintendo 64 version just weren't as popular. Now I love shooting at dinosaurs, don't get me wrong, but other publishers are not going to just publish a game that hasn't been doing so well. However, if they implemented a Turok game in these virtual reality headset games, that might be able to thrive. I bet you weren't expecting to hear about Turok on a video that has Halo 5 in it, but that's kind of what we do on this channel. Okay, so
let me clear my throat.
Let's talk about Halo 5. Kind of implement what we just talked about into Halo 5. We've talked about numerous times in the past how Halo 5 should have had more content on release. It should have had more playlists. It should have had a more epic Halo storyline. It should have included more of what we've seen in the past Halo games. But what's even worse is that people always say that Bungie should come back and make Halo. For a contemporary fan that only maybe plays Halo every so often, they may say this. But those of you who have invested hours and hours and hours of gameplay into the 343 Halo games, some of them stress the tiresome idea that Bungie should come back and take over and make Halo games again. I will neither agree nor disagree. However, one thing I can agree on is that something should be explained. Bungie released their last Halo game back in 2010 with Halo Reach. It's been 6 years now, and in regards to a company like Bungie, in 6 years a lot of jobs change. People come and go, and this is a big important part. Jason Jones, Joseph Staten, and Marty O'Donnell. Do any of these big names ring a bell? Well, they should. There is no I in team, but Halo's 1 all the way to Halo Reach had to be driven in a singular direction. And these guys were the ones that were in charge. They worked for Bungie. They were the faces of Bungie, along with a few other people. But these three gentlemen are no longer working at Bungie anymore. So having Bungie coming back and making Halo video games and voiding the $500 million budget that Activision set for Destiny, that doesn't sound very realistic. And then you have the group of people that enjoy Halo 5 for what it is. They may scratch their heads at some of the decisions that 343 has made, but they overall really enjoy the game and the free content that comes with it. However, these guys that really enjoy playing Halo 5 get really tired of hearing the whole subject about how Halo 5 is so different from all the other Halos, it should be more like Halo 3 or whatnot. Look, Halo has been complained about ever since November the 9th of 2004. Why do I bring up that date? That's because Halo 2 was released on that day. When Halo 2 was released, that's when the fans were able to take another Halo game and compare it to the original. And there were complaints. And when Halo 3 came out, there were more complaints. But as nostalgia shows, a lot of people will end up really liking the game afterwards. Give it about 5 years, mark my words. And that's when we'll have Halo 6 out for a good while. People probably already would get tired of it by that point, and then they'll bring up something that Halo 5 had that was so great. 5 years, maybe even 4 years, you're going to see it in the forums. People wanting something that was in Halo 5 brought into Halo 6. It's going to happen. But the rest of us fans are just going to continue on playing the game and enjoying it. After all, it is a video game. So with that said, this has been Beelzebub's Buns channel, and if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like and go ahead and subscribe. I also write creepypastas and I narrate them, so if you want to hear some creepypastas and you don't feel like sleeping, this is the channel to subscribe to. Thank you very much, I'll see you in the next video.